Fun. Nice day here in Texas. Big cloud cover.
Big.
But the temperature's up into the 70s. Track temp 85 degrees, and they've been dragging tires around this place now for a couple of weeks, getting ready to go really fast. So after the off week, everybody's had a chance to regroup and figure out what they need to do as now we get into the meat of the season.
Yeah, I think some teams, and Jeff will agree, some teams needed an off week, maybe to get their act together, regroup a little bit, look at the data, if you will, and go through all that. But one guy I think that probably is glad they had an off week was Clint Boyer. It gave him a little chance to recover from the celebration from Martinsville 2 weeks ago.
I don't know. That might have been a little too much of a break for Clint.
It was funny. Everybody was anxious to get out of Martinsville, and then we learned why, because on social media we saw all the exotic locations everybody went to during the off week. It was fun.
Well, and that's the thing. It's, you know, you get rested, you're relaxed, but then you come back to a racetrack that's going to get your attention lap one. This is one of the most challenging mile-and-a-half tracks, one of the fastest mile-and-a-half tracks that we go to. So the vacation's over. Back to business.
Oh, that's right. Well, let's see if the party is still going on in the 14 pit. Here's Vince Welch.
Well, I think Mike Bugaravich, the crew chief for Clint Boyer, was just happy to see his driver today to make sure he actually was here. But yes, there has been a lot of celebrating in this 14 camp, and the buzzword really has been relief. Relief to finally have gotten that win in that 190 race winless streak for Clint and secure this team's spot in the playoffs. So certainly a little more bounce in the step, relief amongst all the team members here at Texas this weekend. But now it's back to business in qualifying trim, as most of these teams will be, with qualifying later this afternoon. And typically this hasn't been one of Clint's best tracks. Seems to always fight loose in, and once they get some security into the corner, doesn't feel so good from that point on. So some work to do for this team today. They know it's not going to be an easy weekend for them, but boy, they sure have smiles on their faces.
Absolutely. Thanks, Vince. Now, Jimmie Johnson rolling around the apron of the racetrack, and he's been out doing that now for a couple of laps. Larry McReynolds?
Yeah, Mike, what they actually did, he left pit road, went down the backstretch, came down pit road, went back out, and came down it a second time. I mean, the only thing I could put my finger on is checking pit road speed, but this would be the first time I've seen a team and a driver do it at the beginning of the very first practice 2 days before the race.
I probably agree with that, Larry, but maybe they feel like they want to get that nailed right now, get that done, so they don't have to fool with that thing later. Maybe they got to make a slight adjustment. But, hey, that 48 team, who's got the most wins here? 48.
Jimmie Johnson.
Who's got the most top fives here?
Jimmie Johnson.
Who's
Jimmie
got the most
Johnson.
laps?
Jimmie Johnson. Jimmie Johnson.
Across the board.
See where I'm coming from?
And
I do.
We just heard radio communication where Jimmie Johnson said not a lot of grip here, and I think that's why they did this early on, because I think this track is going, even though they've been dragging Goodyear rubber around this racetrack for the last several days or weeks getting ready for this event, nothing is like the actual friction of a race car putting it into the track.
So they have used both the Texas tire dragger and the Kentucky contraption that is very similar. You see the dark groove that's all been laid down around the racetrack, and they said they worked on the second groove up from the apron and the third groove, and they're going to continue doing it whenever race cars are not on track until midnight each night, right up until race time. That's it, the Texas Tire Monster. And those tires, you see, they're pointed at an angle, not straight ahead. That's so they create maximum friction with the surface and put down a maximum amount of rubber.
And there's been a lot of communication about where should that start? Where should that begin? Should it start higher and then work its way down and actually leave the bottom groove? We know the race cars are going to rubber in this racetrack as we ride on board the Kevin Harvick right around the bottom. That's going to be the preferred lane. So why not run that rubber and tire dragon, or I don't know what they're calling it these days, a little bit higher to clean it up, to give them a little bit more, let's call it wiggle room if they get out of the groove.
Yeah, recovery ring in case something goes wrong. But Kurt Busch, who holds our track record at a 26.87, 200.9 miles an hour, who's happened to be at the top of the board right now, but way off of that track record speed. A couple of seconds.
Kevin Harvick second fastest, 28.35.
When I go back to a year ago, I remember just how treacherous this track was when it was fresh, brand new pavement, and you could see the drivers just tiptoeing into the corner. So already we're way ahead of where we were a year ago, now having 2 races under our belts. But now also this track's weathered in, so it's going to increase speed throughout the weekend, throughout the day, just throughout this next 50 minutes.
Now the fastest lap belongs to Kevin's teammate Kurt Busch. Here's what he had to say after his run.
I don't know. I feel like I'm driving on the moon. This car sliding around trying to find the grip, but no real balance issues. At 10-4, yeah, that'll change a lot. Sure, the first 30 minutes.
Here's another interesting point. 11 drivers have been on track so far. They are all driving Fords and Chevrolets. All the Toyotas are still in the garage.
If I had to guess, that's a plan.
Yeah, that's not coincidence.
I mean, we've documented and talked a lot about the amount of communication that goes on between different OEMs, and it seems like Toyota typically seems to be, because there are only 5 teams, right? It's Joe Gibbs with their 4, and then Furniture Row with their 1. They seem to stick together when it comes to plans more than any others.
I think they may have a question like I would have, Jeff, and we got the 11 car. He's out. That's one of the Gibbs cars, the Toyota. My question would be, the tire dragging, what tires were they dragging? Because, you know, we always talk about they got to get this rubber burned off, got to get this. So I just wonder if there's a difference in the tires that they drag and the tires on the car.
I don't know if that was planned, where Denny Hamlin up the racetrack sees a little bit of dust out from underneath that car. I don't think that was planned.
No plan.
But from what I understand, I know the teams ask if Goodyear can provide the tire they're actually going to race on.
It is the race tire. That's what they are dragging.
Woof.